believe we have
We do.
Senator Kamala Harris joining us, former Attorney General of California. And can you hear us? Can you just confirm you're with us, Kamala?
I'm here. Yes, I'm with you.
Great. Thank you for being here with us. First of all, your reaction to the increased charge of murder from third degree to second degree against Officer Chauvin, and then the aiding and abetting charges. Your reaction to this?
Well, we're one step closer to justice, but there's no question justice delayed is justice denied. And looking backward just in the last couple of hours and days, it should not have had to take so long. I'm glad that the case was moved over to the Attorney General. I do strongly believe, after years of being a prosecutor, that there should be independent investigations of these kinds of cases. It should not be the DA's office or the state's attorney's office that works with that police department every day. So we're one step closer to justice. But, you know, we're talking about an extremely tragic case and sadly, a case that is not unique in the history of our country.
Senator Harris, we've heard from the Attorney General that he did promise the family to continue to investigate, and if necessary, he would upgrade the charges even further to first-degree murder if warranted. But as a former prosecutor, so many people want so much out of the criminal justice system right now. You still have to prove all of these things in a court of law. Can you tell us about the challenges that the Minnesota Attorney General and their legal system will face when trying to go further with the charges given this incident?
Well, I have to assume that Keith Ellison, who's the Attorney General of Minnesota, has reviewed the facts. I mean, listen, we all saw it. We all watched it. We watched that police officer have his knee on the man's neck, on George Floyd's neck, for over 8 minutes. I'll tell you guys, in 1 week, America witnessed the significance of 2 minutes and some seconds. And I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. In 1 week, we saw that officer's knee on the neck of George Floyd 2 minutes and 38 seconds after he was unconscious. He engaged in torture, watching George Floyd die. In the same week, we watched SpaceX, and many of us watched that NASA clock count down the minutes, the 2 minutes and 38 seconds that were critical minutes and seconds for that rocket to launch. The significance of the passage of time in America, when it's a black man's life or it's a mission to outer space. And I'll tell you, this is why people are marching in the street. This is why people are marching in the street.
And Kamala, you mentioning the people marching on the streets. We are seeing dramatic protests in our country right now. How would you describe the mood of the nation? And from your perspective, why are so many people coming to protest now? I mean, this is not the first injustice against an African American at the hands of police.
No, that's right. That's quite right. And the way I think where we are right now is America is raw. We are raw, and her injuries are exposed, and we have to deal with that. This is longstanding. Look, as a daughter of California, can you believe this is 30 years after Rodney King, and people are still marching with the same chants and the same songs and the same signs 30 years later? I do believe that one of the greatest advancements on this and so many other issues, but on this issue, is the creation of the smartphone. Because what has happened is that now people are walking around with a video camera in their back pocket, and they're capturing these moments that communities have been shouting about for generations and sadly have not been believed enough for there to be systemic change. But now no one can deny the facts and the evidence and what their eyes behold, which is the level of brutality that has in particular been levied against black and brown men and women in America. Let's not forget, it's George Floyd, it's Breonna Taylor, it's Ahmaud Arbery, and the list goes on. And so I do believe in some ways, sadly, it has taken so long, but it's an inflection point.
Well, Senator Harris, so many people have talked about what exactly you're saying about the video, the fact I've been told this has happened before without video, and now we have the video. And so that does make a huge difference when we bring in the three other officers who are now charged. And again, I'm sorry to keep going back to legal versus moral. I think it's a morally right thing, the people that are protesting. But when you get into that court of law, you're a former prosecutor. It becomes difficult to prosecute. I'm just curious how you fight that in the legal circle, not the moral, but the legal.
So I will tell you, Philip, you're absolutely right. And so there's no question. First of all, a prosecutor cannot get a conviction unless you can prove that the evidence shows beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. That being said, one of the things that I'm here in D.C. working on is a package of reform around policing, together with Senator Cory Booker, with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and specifically, to your point, one of the issues that we're fighting for is I'm proposing that there be a different standard, a better standard, in courts of law around what makes for excessive force. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. Currently, the standard in most places is to ask the question, well, was that use of force reasonable? Well, you can find reason from almost anything. It's just not a fair standard for this. So instead, I'm proposing that the question will be, was the use of force necessary? And to your point, when it comes to proving these cases, that is really the fair question to ask. Was it necessary that you had your knee on the man's neck for 8 minutes and some seconds? And not was it reasonable in your mind or in that moment? And so this is one of the ways that we are in courts of law around the country, I think, going to really have justice for not only the families of these victims, but for all of us as a society. I'm right now in the United States Senate looking across the street from my office at the United States Supreme Court, a big, beautiful marble building, which has inscribed on it equal justice under law. We still have not achieved that ideal in America, and we've got to fight to get there. That's why people are protesting. But changing the law around the use of force standard is one way we will get there, and I have many other reforms.
Yeah. Also, Senator, we are hearing along the same lines that people believe that some of the injustices stem from prosecutors who do not, district attorneys who do not go after people who are, delivering or responsible for these injustices against people of color. So what do you tell people out there who blame the district attorneys, their inaction? What do you tell them?
What I say is this: we need to reform the system. I mean, here's the thing, guys. I was a career prosecutor, and what I have learned over a period of time is that the DA's office should not be the one investigating these cases. I feel very strongly about that, and I know of what I speak. It's not a fair system because there's too much of an appearance of a conflict of interest, even if it is the best DA with the best intentions. It's still the appearance of whether justice is actually being done. So I advocate, and I am advocating as part of my package of bills, that there be independent investigations, that DA's office that works with that police department every day should not and cannot be the one investigating a case of misconduct coming out of that department. Instead, that it should be an independent investigation not being done by that office. And this is part of what we need to do to reform the system, because again, we have to in a system of we have to ensure justice, and that means fairness, and it means equity, and it means that everyone is treated equal. And right now, that's not the case.
Senator, we know you have to go. We want to say thank you. Can I ask you a yes or no question? Do you think you have enough support to get those changes, getting the wording over to necessary versus reasonable? Are you optimistic about that?
I'm very optimistic because, again, when I look at, I was out there marching with folks this weekend, and when I look at who's out there, it is a cross-section of who we are as a country. It is every race, every age, every gender, and I think people know this is just the right thing for our country. And it just will bring us one step closer to those ideals that we cherish but have not yet reached.
Thank you, Senator.
All right. Thanks again for joining us, Senator Kamala Harris.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Click the ABC7 logo to subscribe to our Eyewitness News YouTube channel.